I had this experience one year with my now ex-husband, but at Christmas, he came from a family where they would have tons and tons of gifts, just mounds and mounds, right? And I came from a family where it was much more pared down, simple, very practical, pragmatic. And it's not that one was right and one was wrong. And that was kind of the self-talk that I had. I was like, it's not that you're right and he's wrong or he's right and you're wrong. It's just you've had these different experiences. But this is why it gives you so much angst at what should be this happy holiday celebration. And you're just bristling with, anxiety.
And that's why you're not just, squabbling or in a conflict over the money itself. Like, these are deeply rooted feelings on what you believe, in your example, a holiday should be, right? Like, we actually spoke with a couple for a chapter about culture and coming from different cultures. And a very similar example was given, right? Like the one partner, basically the way that he grew up was, you don't really place a lot of emphasis on holidays and on gift giving around holidays or any special occasions. Like, you love people every day, and you don't. And for his wife, she grew up in a bit of a tumultuous household, but the holidays themselves were like really placed up on this pedestal, and it was almost like the holiday created this special moment where everything was okay. And she continued and aged into adulthood and started their family under the notion that they would also treat holidays with that special feeling and invest in them accordingly, right? And to make a big deal out of their kids' birthdays and their anniversaries and stuff. And it didn't feel good to her, right? So where they had to find that middle ground was him realizing, all right, well, maybe I didn't grow up this way, but it's really important to my wife that we put a little bit more. Maybe I have to step off of my tight grip over our budgeting for this holiday time so that we can find a way forward with what works for our family, not just holding on to the way that I was raised.
Yes.
It's really hard work. And it's not necessarily something that's going to happen in the earliest years of your relationship. Like, these things take a lot of time.
Exactly. And honestly, I think you could do your next book could just be about navigating holidays and all of these emotional baggage things that come with it.
It's so funny because as we started looking into the micro topics that we would really dive into for this book, like chapter by chapter, and I knew that I wanted the book to be 30 short chapters. I wanted them to be digestible, like snippets. Like, we weren't going to create world peace in 2,000 words or less in each of these chapters. But a chapter like the one on culture, I even mentioned in the chapter, there is no way to cover all of this in such a short span of time, in such a condensed space. But I think what you can do is to start to identify the things like, when you do come from a different culture, that how that impacts your money behaviors, your feelings, and your beliefs. And just by identifying them and calling out a couple of them, the reader can then say to themselves, wow, we do talk about money differently, or wow, we were raised to believe that this way of making money was the right way.
Right.
I think that's an interesting one too.
Yes.
In some cultures, hustle culture is real. Like, you do whatever you have to do, and it doesn't matter. And there is no culturally ingrained standard of the way that you should make money. Whereas the way I grew up, it was you become a doctor, you become a lawyer, you go to a white collar job. That is what is acceptable in the way in the framework in which I grew up.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's right.
Right.
That was a cultural script ingrained in me from a young age. Right.
Whereas you mentioned, Doug's family, they're entrepreneurial, they're very comfortable with risk. And I mean, that's something as advisors we often see is, somehow those two people meet, just like the people who like to be at the airport 3 hours early, marry the people who like to fly in, come in hot.
Oh my God. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, some families are completely risk averse. They would never encourage their children to do something where they would be in a situation, like that.
My family would have never, right? Because that's just not what they did. The same way that Doug is a fixer. He always has been, because that was the way he was raised, was that you can solve your own problems. You will chart your own course. And you have all the tools that you need to succeed.
That's
you do.
Fantastic.
And it's amazing, but it's also not always true.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And that's why, when we talk about risk, and so risk is something I love talking about, not just because I spent, over a decade in the commercial insurance industry, but because I think that like people don't always get it, that like it's not black and white. We all kind of live on this sliding scale of gray, and that the
Oh, yeah.
compromise exists somewhere in there, and that none of us really can control. Like risk is about acknowledging that you cannot control outcomes, right? But we can kind of make decisions to hedge what those outcomes might be and what the impact of them might be.
Yes.
So, like with someone like Doug, like it's just he grew up in this risk-on environment, and I grew up kind of in more of like a fear-based scarcity, like put your head down and do your work and do a good job, and it'll all work out. Which,
Yeah. And that can take a while to reconcile.
right.